I have been playing chess for more than 13 years, and in this video I will teach you the most important things I have learned by reading so many chess books, watching hundreds of videos, and playing thousands of games. I will demonstrate this in a game. We are playing against pawn to e4, and I used to be really afraid of playing against this. I tried everything basically. I tried the French, the Sicilian, the modern, the Pierts, the Owens defense, everything. Until one day I started playing the Scandinavian. And ever since I started playing the Scandinavian defense, I am super confident against pawn e4. If I had to play a very strong player and I knew they were playing e4, I would actually pray to get the black colors just because I think the Scandinavian is such a great opening. And I am not saying that the other openings don't work. Of course they do. They are amazing openings as well. But most of them require so much memorization. And yeah, memorizing openings, memorizing moves, it's not really how I like to play chess. I like to just think my way through the game, use strategies, and not just memorize. And that is why eventually I decided to start playing the Scandinavian because there are so few options basically for my opponent, and it's always the same structure that we go for. And like this position, I have had this already hundreds of times. There is literally nothing that they can try here that I won't have seen before. And that is the big strength here by always sticking to the same opening and keeping things simple. They are trying to trade this knight for this bishop. And I think this is a very important learning moment. I go through the opening a little bit quickly because this is not a Scandinavian course. But I want to talk about this moment. I've had this position before as well. My opponent is attacking my bishop with his knight. So if you calculate the material, you would say it's 3 points versus 3 points. It is equal. But chess pieces are not equal. That's not true. The chess pieces are not equal. Every piece has a different value based on its role that it can potentially play in the future. And we have an imbalance in this position. An imbalance. It's a difficult word for just saying a difference. The difference is knight bishop versus knight knight. So that is something we can use to our advantage, that we have an extra bishop. Why? Well, knights are very short range pieces, they can't really go far. Bishops are long range pieces, we can do a lot more with them. So if I can keep this bishop alive, I am going to have extra chances in the middle game, or at least I have something that I can use in the middle game. Because if I just play, let's say knight to d7, well, first of all, it would be a terrible move. Let's say I just castle. They can always just take my bishop. And then the position is actually so equal, so boring, that nothing is going to happen. And a draw is probably the only result that I can get from this position. So I do like safe and solid chess, but I don't like to have something that is super symmetric or super boring, because we will get a draw. So yes, I am going to move the same piece twice. That's one of the opening rules. Don't move the same piece twice, but I am going to move the same piece twice, just because I think it is the right approach. We want to keep this bishop alive. Before you do anything, always look at your opponent's last move. I took way too long to realize this when I was still a beginner. This is one of the key rules. They are moving the queen. So what I now always do is I check what was their piece doing previously. They were guarding the knight, guarding the pawn. Okay? What is their piece doing now? They are attacking the pawn. And if you force yourself to do this quick check every single time, it's almost impossible to blunder material. Because if I was just thinking, oh yeah, my plan is to castle, no, you would be losing your pawn. Or, oh yeah, I'm just going to develop a piece. Yeah, that pawn is also gone. But since I take like 3 or 4 seconds to think about their move, I immediately see, oh, yeah, I have to solve this first and I can't stick to my plan. So please start doing this in your own games. Plus, you will also notice opportunities like this pawn is no longer defended by the queen. But I already noticed, okay, the knight is still protecting it. Otherwise, I could maybe just swoop in with my queen and grab a free pawn. How are we going to defend this? I can propose a trade of queens, but if they take, they would also be doubling up my pawns. And in general, I try to keep my pawn structure as beautiful, I would say, as I can. Like, this is a beautiful pawn structure. All of these pawns, not this square, all of these pawns are actually amazing. They are very flexible for the endgame. Plus, trading queens against brings us closer to a potential endgame. And since I don't have an advantage yet, it's probably going to be a very boring endgame. I am just going to castle here. That was part of my plan. Yes, I am quick, but I did calculate this move. I did calculate that, yes, they are no longer protecting this pawn, but it doesn't matter, I don't have attackers, plus they are attacking this. But you can see sometimes I play quickly, but that is just experience. But I always do this check, I always think about their move. And that is also why I castle, because I know this is now extra safe, there are not going to be any tricks here, and this pawn, there's nothing I can do straight up either way. They are playing a bit of a strange move, and especially when your opponent makes a strange move, it is a moment to pause and to think, what are they doing? So I don't know what his plan is, but he is attacking this pawn. He has 2 knights near my position, so it's always time to be a little bit careful and think, like, what is going on here? Because you might be falling for some type of trap. I don't personally see anything. If there was still a bishop here, yeah, he would potentially be able to play for tricks. But I don't really see anything. So now we are in the middle game, and middle games are basically my favorite part of chess. I am a very strong middle game player, and I will teach you how to become a very strong middle game player as well. And that is why I said I like to pick those simple openings, go into the middle game, and then, yeah, I know most of the middle games for my opening. This one, actually, I don't know, never really had this position with the queen there, but I will be able to figure something out. So the first thing I always think about in the middle game is improving my pieces. So for example, here, playing knight to d7. That is, I think, potentially a move I could play. But I have to always be a little bit careful. There is some tension here, so I don't really know what's going on here. For example, this. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. And this knight is also attacking. They are basically up a piece in that variation, as you can see, because they take a knight, I take the queen, they take my queen, and then I am down a piece. So I am already calculating, can I do this? But I am still thinking about their previous move, and they are playing a little bit tricky. Bishop d6 is also something I could play, pinning the knight to the queen. Potentially in the future I might be able to play pawn to f6. So that is something I can think about. They can play f4, which basically solves all problems and also gives them attacking options. And this is how I decide which move I want to play. This is called picking a candidate move. So I am thinking about a couple of candidate moves. Those are possible moves I would play. What I always think about is CCT, checks, captures, and threats. I don't have checks, I don't really have captures except plundering and queen, and I don't really have threats except maybe playing something like f6 or playing something like f5, which I might actually be thinking about, but usually I want to keep my pawn solid. So for my candidate moves, I have this knight, I have this bishop. I am thinking if there is something else I would play. Maybe I could also think about moving the rook, trying to attack this weak pawn. So those are the moves I am thinking about. So I have 3 options basically to choose from. If you are playing online and you are playing rapid games, my biggest advice is don't pick too many candidate moves. Try to prioritize the CCT, checks, captures, and threats, because if you pick too many moves, your time will just run out or you will miscalculate. So from my calculation, I always do very short and very accurate calculation. No long calculation, but short and accurate. So I was thinking this, and then eventually I lose. Of course, I could also play this, but we are just exchanging, and that is also not something that I want. So basically, I already eliminated this move for now. As I did calculate this as well, but I immediately saw they have f4, and basically I don't have anything. So my next move is going to be rook to d8. I attack the pawn, and I think they probably just have to protect it. Yeah, there's nothing else. So that is why I am going to play this move. And you can see, like, I don't need to calculate very deeply. I don't need some extreme calculation or some very deep moves. I was just thinking between all of my moves, and this one improves my position. I have an active rook and doesn't cause me any problem. So that is why this is the perfect move. Okay, again, we are in the same position. CCT first, checks, captures, threats. Not really anything except this move looks a little bit more interesting to me right now, but it also doesn't too much because I think they can just take this. And that's it. So again, I am thinking, can I develop this knight? But probably I will run into trouble. Even now that my rook is gone, I can see that there might be something for them with sacrificing on f7. Because again, we are in a similar position. For example, this, I'm now, yeah, it's not looking too great either. So when I moved my rook, I was thinking about the fact that this is a little bit weaker. I didn't see any problems immediately, but it is something to keep in mind. Okay, so what do I want? I want to find candidate moves. I am not thinking about this move. I am thinking a little bit about pawn f6, which might be a decent move here, I think, because we can relieve some of the pressure. And maybe even knight a6. So you can see in this position that I am struggling a little bit, but that's normal. It's a very strong chessbot. And I am struggling because basically every single move I want to make, I always have to think about this knight. This knight can do this knight can do that, this queen is here. So I am getting to a point where I am thinking maybe I should play f6. I mean, my pawn structure is a little bit ruined. He is going to move his knight somewhere. But I can just trade queens, damage his structure, and at the end of the day I am going to be in a middle game. So this is something that I call growing up in chess. I don't like the move pawn f6. I don't like moving my f-pawn. But if you think it's the best move in the position, just play the move. Just be an adult, play the move. Even if you think it's not a move you like, it's an ugly move, it's a strange move, you want to play it anyways. This is something I didn't calculate. It is a little bit crazy, but I don't think we have any problems because usually tricks and traps like this always fall short. One, we just have bishop d6, which would probably lead to some massive exchange, I think. Wow, this is complicated. I think I can even take this, or I can take this, doesn't matter. Or I can take with the rook, probably. So that's fine. I can't take this knight, of course, otherwise I would be losing my queen. I can take their queen, and then they take my bishop with a check. But if I attack his knight, yeah, he still has to recapture, and then I can take with my king. So, very important, again, that we calculate different variations. So I am calculating this loses the queen. This is fine, but it's going to lead to a massive exchange plus. I don't really see a good endgame from that. We might also end up with doubled pawns. But taking the queen is the most forcing option because there are not that many moves for him. This is going to lead to an endgame. And it's going to be an endgame. And basically, I think my opponent helped me. They helped me to get my king closer. And this is also something I learned, that is that sometimes you can get an endgame very early. But some players don't prepare for it. Because in an endgame, the rules of chess are completely different than from the opening and the middle game. So in the opening, you would never want to move your king twice to the e7 square to capture back some type of bishop. But we are in an endgame. And why am I saying that? Well, we both have 3 pieces and there are no queens. So I identify this as an endgame. We did lose our advantage of having the extra bishop. So if this was an over-the-board game, I would have probably played slower and calculated more. So I could have kept that advantage with the bishop. Yeah, here I just gave away the bishop for the knight. But yeah, we are still in an equal position. And against an opponent this strong, I am fine with that. They are attacking my pawn. So I will move it. And you might be thinking, wow, you just told us that you don't like moving pawns and you like to keep the structure solid. True. But the moment that we get into the endgame, the rules change, and pawn moves are very important in the endgame. So that is why I will move my pawns. And finally, this knight, I can develop it. It literally took me like 21 moves, and now I can finally develop this knight. So this will be a very instructive endgame, because this endgame is actually difficult. This is a really difficult endgame. It is equal, but it's still difficult to figure out a plan. So what am I thinking about? We have to look at the structure. And I don't care about the pieces, because we both have 2 rooks and a knight. The pieces are equal. The only imbalance, the only difference that we have is the pawn structure. Doubled pawns, important. Here, they have 4 pawns on the queen side, we have 3. So basically they have extra pawns on the queen side, but we have 4 pawns on the king side and they have 3. And especially since these are on these 2 files, and we have our pawns more towards the center, there is an opportunity for us to create a passed pawn. There always will be an opportunity for us to create a passed pawn. For example, in some variation, if I push this and they take and I take with the f-pawn, which I'm not saying is necessarily a good move, but there would be an opportunity for us to create a passed pawn. We always have to be careful, of course, that we don't create a weakness, an isolated pawn that can be captured. So I will always take some time to really think about the pawn structure first. This position is telling me that as black, my biggest advantage is potentially creating a passed pawn with the e5 push. I also take a look at open files. So my opponent has 2 rooks already on the right files. They are attacking here because they don't have any pawns. I have 1 file as well where I have a rook targeting this pawn. So I have to try to fight against this, because if I can eliminate this pawn, my rook can enter the position, while my opponent is trying to fight against this. So right now I am not going to start like pushing this, which would be a terrible move, by the way, because you would have a weakness here that's attacked twice. I won't push this right now because, again, I am basically helping open everything up near his rooks. I am going to keep this super solid, and I will try to use my advantages. And my advantages is that I have this file. I can try to attack this pawn. I can try to eliminate it, and then I will have the advantage here in the later endgame, I would say, where I have these two pawns. So I am thinking about pawn to c5, because if they take, I can take with my knight. If they take, I can take with my pawn. And this is so much easier than our previous position. Plus, I now have two files for my rook. And I also have immediately this passed pawn that we talked about. So this is a good move. Even if they don't capture, it is still a good move. I was going to say, if this is a good bot, they won't capture. Because otherwise they are helping me. But now I am able to create a new imbalance. And the word imbalance always means a new difference. New difference is that they have an isolated pawn, a weak pawn. This pawn doesn't have any friends backing him up. So we have a new target for attack, while this is still super safe. Plus, we also have a new open file for the rook. So this is endgame strategy. We are thinking about pawn structure and open files for the rooks and rook activity. My opponent playing a very smart move, immediately playing this, because of course if I had played something else for them, they would immediately allow us to go into the 7th rank, or in this case the 2nd rank, attacking all of these pawns. So that is a good move. Okay, so I am thinking, what are we going to do? So still, this is a weakness that I can attack. This is, by the way, also a weakness for us. So I am thinking about to move knight to f8. This protects my weakness, and it also opens up my rook. So you can see that my opponent is now the one who has to defend. They have to defend this pawn with pieces, because they can't defend it with any pawns. And now I can basically just attack it again with a different piece. And they cannot attack my rook because they would be dropping the knight. So even though this solved white's problems that I can't enter with the rook, they also in a real way pinned this pawn to the knight's protection, and now it can't really move. So I think I can just play this. Probably he will play his rook over to protect. Okay, he doesn't. I was going to say, probably he is going to play his rook over to protect. And you might be thinking, well, everything is solid, right? You are not winning anything. No, but we are attacking weaknesses, and eventually something will crack, and we will have a win. And the win here would have been, I think, pawn to e5, because if they take this, of course, bam, we take the rook. If they push, we take this rook. They take, and yeah, that's actually an interesting position. Not really sure, but since the pawn is getting closer to our king, probably we will be able to win it anyways. And yeah, they can't take, they can't push. And if they didn't do anything, let's say they just played a random move, we would have been able to just go for some type of massive trade-off and get the pawn closer to promotion. But they played something strange, I think, because now I am just going to switch my target of attack. They are allowing my rook to enter the position, so I am going to enter the position. That is fine. And they move the rook. Okay. What I'm thinking about is basically just this, because it's a double advantage. We are both attacking this pawn twice, plus we have a rook here on the open file. And this is one of those positions where I think black has to collapse. Black has to collapse at some point. Like, there's no way they are going to hold on here, because this rook is defensive. This rook is double defensive, and my rooks are active, aggressive, attacking weaknesses. So my opponent has to collapse at some point. But how do we win this? Well, my defensive knight is basically the worst piece. So I am thinking, can I just try to get it back into the game? Maybe even push e5 at some point. So I think that's just a good move. I don't, overcomplicate things. It's usually just simplicity. Can we push this? If they take, we can take with the knight or with the pawn. But I think the problem is we never will really make any progress, and we are also helping them to eliminate their weakness. So it's good that I have my knight here guarding some extra squares, but I don't think it's going to do anything immediately. One thing I can do is I can use this open file to try to get both of my rooks in. Because if you imagine two rooks being here, yeah, everything is probably going to collapse for my opponent. So that is also a good plan. Just putting two rooks here. And I think now this is the position where everything will collapse. This knight is weak. They can't move the knight without really running into troubles. If they move here, we take it, and we can start picking up the pawns. So I think finally I was able to make my opponent break, and we are going to be able to push through. It's still not super easy. It's still not super easy. But we are already, I think, up a pawn. We have the active rooks, so we should be able to win. What is the next plan? Just basically keep optimizing pieces. I think it's time to use my king a little bit as well. See if I can try to get in closer with the king, for example here, and attack this. But I have to watch out I don't fall for any stupid tricks either. So yeah, maybe we have to move the rook actually. And then in the future we can move the king. So let's do that. And you can see white basically almost has no moves because they always have to defend. And I can get my king to the center, which I am going to do. Because in the endgame, if you can centralize your king, that is always an advantage. And I think now it is time for us to start pushing this pawn and to see if we can create progress with creating a new passed pawn. And my goal is to see if I can promote this pawn. So if I can just push and try to promote. Yeah, I think we can. I think we can just push and promote, also open up a square for our knight. I didn't really think about this check. Maybe I was playing a bit too quickly. Let me see this check. I have to move my king, but I can attack this knight, right? And if they play this, they are in a lot of trouble. So I think I am playing a bit too quickly here, but this looks like it's decent. And yeah, they have to go back. But the problem is, if I go back, I think he can give the check again. So that's not gonna work. So I might have to actually abandon my pawn, but still, they have to go back. So there's no way to make progress with the king. This bot is defending very well. There's no way to make progress with the king. Okay. Well, one thing I can do is I can always... I have to defend this as well. I was going to say I can always switch my target of attack and I can start attacking here on the queen side and just try to create a passed pawn here. But I also have to watch out I don't just blunder a lot of material. So yeah, probably this is a plan. We can just double up. Trading is not going to be bad because we are already in a winning position. But this bot is playing some real annoying chess. They keep attacking my rooks. Okay, but I am happy. I finally am able to trade a little bit. I think we lost our one pawn, but it doesn't matter because I already see that we have some new attacking opportunities here. We can start pushing on the queen side. And I think this is going to be the end of the game. Yeah, this is probably going to be the end of the game because they won't be able to defend this. Finally, I was able to figure out something. No, it doesn't matter. He can grab all the free pawns he wants. I think I can just grab this and I can start pushing. I can start pushing and that's it. He will have to, at some point, sacrifice his knight for the pawn. And we can start pushing and that's going to be it. So he is playing a very good defense, but it's not going to matter. Eventually, I will be able to create my queen. So that is how I approach the endgame. I have to say this was a very long endgame, a very tough endgame. My opponent played extremely well. Yeah, this also works to always just take away squares from the knight. This as well. My opponent here, the bot, played an extremely strong game. I've almost never struggled this much against this bot. But they played a very decent game. And still, we actually can't make any progress. Because whenever I go here, he will check. And whenever I go back, he goes back. So I think we will have to activate our knight, honestly. I don't really see any other way. No, I don't see any other way. I think I have to activate my knight. And I have to come in with the knight as well. That's crazy. For example, this. This bot is, like I said, playing so extremely well. I have to always watch out, of course, if I still win. But yeah, I still have a winning endgame. Because the closer you get into the endgame, the more you want to calculate. You don't want to make any mistakes. And now, finally, I think I can make a queen. I can probably also play this check. No, I can't play this check. I will probably have to just make a queen. And then take this. And then go for the endgame where I still have the extra knight. And he has the 3 pawns. So endgames like this are very difficult, as I said, but they are winning. If you have an extra piece, you will eventually always win. Because in the endgames, it's always about king activity. We are both fighting with our kings. But since I have an extra piece, I can always waste some moves. And I'm way more flexible in the moves I want to play. I can just go in with my king. and I can always give him checks as well. And he won't really be able to do anything. He won't be able to create a passed pawn either, because he has the doubled pawns. And then eventually here, of course, this endgame is now winning because all we have to do is to promote this pawn. So I hope this was a very valuable lesson. I think especially the endgame was some crazy endgame played by this bot. So I think that should have been a valuable lesson. As always, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.